If you show up to work already tired, tense, and annoyed before you even sit down, this is for you. If you don't fix your commute, you'll keep dragging traffic stress into your meetings, your money decisions, and your relationships. Today I'll give you one line and a simple rule that turn your commute into real Stoic focus training. The part that will surprise you is how we slow down your reactions without turning you into a doormat. If that sounds like something you need, stay with me. You're gripping the steering wheel a little too tight again. The sky is still gray, your coffee is already lukewarm, and brake lights stretch out in front of you like a red river that never moves. Your phone buzzes in the cup holder, an email from your boss flagged urgent, a text from a coworker asking if you saw the client's complaint, a notification from your banking app reminding you that a bill hits today. You haven't even made it to the office yet, but your jaw is clenched, your shoulders are up by your ears, and you can feel the day slipping out of your control before it even starts. You've probably been told that the commute is just dead time. Something to get through. Put on some background noise, scroll a bit, maybe shout at a stranger who just cut you off, and hope you arrive in one piece. But here's the uncomfortable question: what if your commute is quietly training you to lose every day before it even begins? Think about it. You wake up already behind. You rush out the door, half distracted, half irritated, and you step into a moving metal box or a crowded train with no plan for your mind. You let random notifications dictate your mood. You rehearse old arguments. You imagine disasters that haven't happened yet. By the time you reach work, or school, or that first appointment, your mental battery is at 30% and dropping. You're more likely to snap at a coworker, forget key details, overreact to a small comment, or come home at night too drained to actually enjoy the people you care about. Over weeks and months, that costs you focus, money, opportunities, and self-respect. Today, we're going to flip that. By the end of this lesson, you'll know how to turn your commute into the most powerful focus training you do all day. You'll walk away with a simple commute ritual, a micro-learning track you can run on autopilot, and a pre-office reset sequence that pulls you out of stress mode before you step through the door. Educational content inspired by classical Stoic texts. Not medical, psychological, or legal advice. You'll learn how to stop letting traffic, delays, and other people's moods push you around, and instead turn those same moments into reps for patience, discipline, and clarity. First, we'll look at how to redefine what the commute actually is for you, shifting it from irritation time to training time. Next, we'll shape your inputs so that what you listen to and think about during that drive or train ride actually builds the kind of mind you want. Then, we'll create a simple arrival buffer so you never stumble into your day already flustered and scattered. After that, we'll build boundaries around your digital life during your commute, so other people's urgency doesn't hijack your attention. Finally, we'll tie it all together with a pre-office reset, showing you how to step out of your car, off the bus, or off the train already grounded and ready. In a little while, we'll walk through a very real Friday morning where everything goes wrong at once: traffic, tense messages, surprise meetings, and you'll see how these tools literally change the outcome of the day. You'll see the version of you who explodes, and the version of you who doesn't, and what makes the difference between them. Stay with me until the very end, and while you're here, hit like, tap subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. As you listen, keep one question in the back of your mind: what would it feel like if your day started under your control, no matter what the road or the train throws at you? The first move is simple but not easy. You decide that your commute is no longer a gap to suffer through, it is now your training ground. The instruction is this: from the moment you close your front door to the moment you step into your building, you're not just a driver, rider, or passenger, you're someone in training for a calmer, more focused life. If you never make this shift, your commute stays random. Every honk, every delay, and every notification trains you to react instead of respond, and the stakes are high because your mornings shape your entire day. This works because your brain responds to the frame you put around an experience. When you tell yourself, "this is just miserable dead time," your mind looks for evidence that you're right, and you find more misery. But when you quietly say, "this is my practice," you give your brain a job. You are not waiting for the day to start, the day has already started, and you are in the gym. As Marcus writes in his meditations about getting out of bed in the morning, your work as a human is to do the work of a human, showing up for life, not hiding from it. A training frame gives irritation a purpose. Each red light becomes a rep for patience. Each cut-off driver becomes a rep for restraint. This is how a calmer, more focused version of you responds instead of reacting. Here's one line you can use as you step into your commute: "From now until I arrive, this is practice, not punishment." You can say it out loud as you start the engine or mentally as you tap your transit card. That sentence quietly moves you from "why is this happening to me" into "how can I work with what's here?" Picture this in a North American setting. It's a Tuesday morning in Chicago. You're sliding into your car in the apartment parking lot. It's colder than you want it to be. You know the expressway will be backed up before you even merge. In the past, you'd start the car, immediately open your email, and get mad at the first message you see. You'd pull onto the road already heated, tapping the horn every time someone doesn't accelerate fast enough. By the time you reach downtown, your shoulders hurt and you're muttering under your breath about people you don't even know. Today, you do something different. You slide into the driver's seat, take one slow breath, and quietly say, "From now until I arrive, this is practice, not punishment." You put your phone face down. The first time someone cuts you off, you feel the familiar surge of anger rising, but you catch it. You say to yourself, "Practice," and loosen your grip on the wheel by a fraction. You're not perfect. You still get annoyed. But you notice that you're watching yourself more, and you're a little less controlled by the chaos outside. Your tiny action for today is this: before your next commute, decide in advance that the entire trip is practice. Say the line once, either out loud or in your head, as you begin. Do not worry about being calm the whole time. Your only job is to remember, at least once, this is training, not just traffic, and notice how that shifts your posture and your mood. Hold on to that, because when we hit that messy Friday morning story later, this frame becomes the difference between a day that derails and a day that holds together. Once you've reframed your commute as training, the next move is to control the inputs that hit your mind while you're in motion. The claim here is straightforward: what you listen to and look at on the way to work is either building your focus or eroding it. If you let the algorithm dump random anger, fear, and noise into your head every morning, you're basically marinating your nervous system in distraction before you even log on. If nothing changes, your commute becomes a daily dose of agitation that bleeds into your first meetings, your decisions, and the way you talk to people. This works because your brain does not neatly separate commute you from office you or home you. The emotional tone you feed it during those first waking hours tends to carry forward. You don't need complicated neuroscience to see this. On mornings when you've been doom-scrolling headlines or listening to a heated argument on talk radio, you feel jumpier, more impatient, and more likely to interpret neutral comments as threats. On mornings when you've chosen something calmer, more structured, or educational, you show up a little more anchored. You're setting the emotional baseline. Seneca wrote often about guarding your mind and being careful about the company you keep. Today, part of that company is whatever audio and visual content you allow in those early hours. Here's a simple script you can use with yourself: on my commute, I only feed my mind what I want more of later. It sounds almost too basic, but it gives you a rule. If you don't want more panic, you skip the panic. If you want more clarity, you choose something that builds clarity. Imagine a scene on a subway in New York. You're standing, one hand on the rail, the other hand holding your phone. The car is crowded, everyone bundled up, the doors chime, and the train lurches forward. Your habit has been to open your news app, scroll through the latest disaster, and let your heart rate climb with each headline. By the time you step off at your stop, you're already irritated and a little hopeless about the world. Today, before you even descend the stairs into the station, you decide on purpose: this ride is for your mind, not for the algorithm. You open a playlist you made with 3 options: a calm, instrumental track, a short Stoic commentary podcast, and one audiobook chapter you've been meaning to finish. You choose the podcast. As the train rattles along, you listen to a 5-minute reflection on focusing only on what you can control. A baby starts crying at the other end of the car, someone's backpack keeps bumping your elbow, but your mind has something steady to hold. You arrive at work not blissful, but clearer. You feel like you've already done something for yourself. Your tiny action is to preload one intentional input for your next commute. That might be a short playlist, a podcast queued up, or an audiobook ready to hit play. The rule is this: you must decide before you move, not once you're already in motion. If you forget and find yourself scrolling again, don't attack yourself. Just notice it, close the app, and return to your chosen input. That simple act of choosing again is part of the training. Now that you've claimed your commute as training and chosen your inputs, the next move is to protect how you arrive. The claim here is this: the last 5 to 10 minutes of your commute are the most important, and you should treat them like a runway, not a crash landing. If you keep answering messages, consuming content, or arguing in your head right up to the moment you walk in, you're stumbling into your day with no mental transition. If this never changes, you'll keep starting meetings frazzled, forgetting what matters, and carrying random irritation from the road onto people who had nothing to do with it. This works because your brain needs cues for switching modes. Pilots do checklists before takeoff and landing for a reason. Those last minutes before you step into your building or log into your first call can be a powerful checklist moment. When you give yourself a small buffer, just a few minutes of silence, breathing, or simple planning, you signal to your nervous system that one phase is ending and another is beginning. You're more likely to remember your priorities, stay anchored to them, and respond to surprises with a little more grace. Without that buffer, you're reacting from leftover adrenaline. Here's the exact line you can use with yourself: the last 5 minutes are for landing, not more noise. You can say it as you notice your exit approaching or as the train announces your stop. This is your cue to shut down inputs and turn inward. Picture this in a North American office park. You're driving into a campus in Austin, turning off the main road toward the building where you work in customer support. Historically, you've been listening to something right up to the second you park. The car is still full of voices as you throw it into park, grab your bag, and hustle inside. Your first call of the day catches you half present, and you find yourself snapping at a customer's tone in a way that later feels embarrassing. Today, about half a mile from the office, you glance at the dash clock. You remember your new rule. You pause your audio. The car goes quiet, just road noise and the hum of the engine. For a moment, you feel awkward, like you should be filling the silence. Then you ask yourself 3 simple questions. What matters most in the next 2 hours? What's one thing I can let go of? How do I want to show up? You take 2 slow breaths at the red light right before the office driveway. You picture yourself greeting your team with a neutral tone instead of a rushed hey. You park, sit for 10 more seconds, and then step out. The day hasn't magically become easy, but you walk in feeling like you're arriving, not being thrown. Your tiny action is this: on your next commute, choose a meaningful landing marker. It might be the last 3 stops before yours on the train, a specific exit sign on the highway, or a bridge you always cross. At that marker, pause all input. No music, no podcast, no phone. Use the remaining time for quiet breathing and one simple intention about how you want to walk into your next space. This will feel strange at first. That's exactly why it's powerful. There's another silent force shaping your commute: your relationship with your phone and messages. The claim here is clear: if you don't set boundaries around digital communication on your commute, you're donating your focus to other people's urgency for free. Checking emotionally loaded texts or emails at red lights, listening to angry voicemails while merging, or trying to craft perfect replies while you're half distracted is a recipe for starting your day in reactive mode. If you keep doing this, your commute becomes a mobile stress lab where other people's problems take over your mind and your safety. This works because your brain has limited bandwidth. Trying to process emotionally charged information while also dealing with traffic, weather, and navigation overloads your system. You're more likely to misread tone, take things personally, or send a reply you regret. At the same time, you're less present on the road or the platform, which can be literally dangerous. A focused, disciplined version of you treats the commute as a place to protect your attention, not open season for every notification that pops up. Here's a simple script you can use with yourself and with others: I'm on the road right now. I'll look at this properly when I arrive. If you're using voice to text, you can say it that way. If you're on public transit and someone messages you, you can adapt it to, on my way in, I'll read this fully once I sit down at my desk. It's honest, clear, and it sets a small expectation that you'll respond when you can actually think. Picture a bus ride in Vancouver. You've just found a seat, the bus is pulling away from the curb, and you feel that familiar urge to open your work email. You do, and right at the top is a message from your manager with the subject line, "We need to talk about yesterday." Your stomach drops. Your heart rate spikes. Nothing around you has changed, the bus is still just rolling along, but inside, you're spiraling through worst-case scenarios. In the past, you'd read the email right away, misinterpret half of it, and spend the rest of the ride drafting 3 different defensive replies. You'd arrive at work already wounded and on edge. Today, you see the subject line and feel the same initial jolt, but you remember your rule. You tell yourself, "I'm on the road right now. I'll look at this properly when I arrive." You archive the notification without opening the message. Instead, you put on your chosen audio or simply look out the window for a few minutes. Is it uncomfortable? Yes. Your mind still tries to pull you back into worry. But you keep gently bringing it back. When you finally sit down at your desk, with your laptop open and your notes in front of you, you open the email and read it once, slowly. It's serious, but not as catastrophic as your imagination made it on the bus. Your tiny action is to create one clear rule for emotionally charged messages during your commute. It could be no reading performance reviews, money conversations, or relationship arguments while in transit. Write it down somewhere you can see it, like in your Notes app or on a sticky note on your dashboard. For the next 3 commutes, when a message comes in that hits that category, use your script, "I'm on the road right now. I'll look at this properly when I arrive." The discomfort you feel when you delay is part of the discipline you're building. Now let's add a Stoic move that changes how you handle the unexpected, previewing the day before the commute even picks up speed. The claim is this: if you mentally rehearse the main challenges you're likely to face before you're deep into traffic or halfway to work, you reduce surprise and increase your ability to respond calmly. If you skip this step, every minor obstacle feels like an ambush. A delayed train or a rescheduled meeting hits harder than it needs to, and you find yourself asking, "Why is this always happening to me?" instead of, "How do I want to show up for this?" This works because the brain likes patterns. When you briefly walk through your day in advance, naming the edges and the pressure points, you're giving your mind a map. Stoic writers called this kind of move premeditation, imagining challenges like rudeness, delays, or rejection so that when they show up, you're not shocked, you're ready. You're not trying to predict every detail, just acknowledging that you will meet resistance and choosing your posture ahead of time. A disciplined version of you uses the first minutes of the commute not to complain about the day, but to calmly preview it. Here's the line you can use to guide this: "Today, I expect some friction, and here's how I plan to meet it." You can say it in your head as you pull out of your driveway or as your train leaves the station. Imagine a morning in Toronto. You're in the back of a rideshare heading downtown. The driver has a podcast playing softly, traffic is already dense, and your calendar is full. You have a check-in with your manager who's been short with you lately, a tough client call after lunch, and a conversation with your partner tonight about a shared expense that's been stressing you both out. In the past, you'd avoid thinking about all this, then get blindsided by each moment as it arrived. Today, as the car merges onto the highway, you glance at your phone's calendar once and then put it face down. You quietly say, "Today, I expect some friction, and here's how I plan to meet it." You take 30 seconds to picture your manager asking hard questions while you stay steady instead of defensive. You imagine the client pushing back sharply while you breathe once before responding. You see yourself tonight, at the kitchen table, speaking clearly about the money issue without raising your voice. You're not scripting every word. You're just choosing to expect difficulty and deciding you'll meet it with more composure than before. Your tiny action is to add a 1-minute preview to the start of your commute tomorrow. Before you hit play on anything, look at your calendar or think through your main responsibilities for the day. Name out loud or in your mind the top 2 or 3 friction points. Then say, "When that happens, I'll pause once, breathe, and respond, not react." That 1 minute changes the tone of your whole commute, because you're not running from the day, you're walking toward it on purpose. We've talked about the start and the landing, now it's time to address what happens in the middle of your commute when stress spikes. The claim here is simple: you need a physical reset you can use while in motion, so you're not just stuck in your head. If you rely only on thoughts to calm you down while someone cuts you off or the train grinds to a halt in a dark tunnel, you're likely to get swept up in the adrenaline anyway. If you never build a simple physical routine, those moments keep owning you. This works because your nervous system listens to your body at least as much as it listens to your thoughts. When your breath is shallow and your posture is collapsed or rigid, your brain reads that as a threat environment and ramps up vigilance. When you deliberately change your breathing and your posture, even by a small amount, you send a different signal. You're not faking calm, you're giving your system a chance to downshift. A focused version of you uses those repetitive markers of a commute, red lights, station stops, slowdowns, as cues for a short reset instead of as excuses to sink deeper into frustration. Here's a simple line to anchor this: every stop is a cue to reset, not to rage. You can tie the stop to whatever fits your commute: red lights, stop signs, station announcements, or even the parking brake when you arrive. Picture this on a freeway outside Los Angeles. You're crawling forward in morning traffic, the kind where you drive 10 feet and then brake, drive 10 feet and then brake. In the past, every tap on the brake was another chance to swear under your breath, reach for your phone, or lean on the horn. Your shoulders would rise, your jaw would clench, and by the time the traffic cleared, you'd be exhausted from being angry. Today, you decide to treat every slowdown as a cue. The first time everything stops, you notice your instinct to slam your palm on the steering wheel. Instead, you say quietly, every stop is a cue to reset, not to rage. You put both feet flat on the floor, loosen your grip on the wheel, and take one slow breath in through your nose and out through your mouth, lengthening the exhale by a second. The car ahead inches forward, you move with it. The next time traffic halts, you repeat the same pattern, feet grounded, shoulders unclenched, one deliberate breath. You still feel annoyed, but there's a gap now. You're doing reps for composure. Your tiny action is to pick one physical reset pattern for your next commute. It might be every red light, I adjust my posture and take one deep breath, or every time the train doors open, I relax my shoulders and let my hands unclench. Keep it small and repeatable. The goal is not to become perfectly serene. The goal is to build a tiny habit that shifts your body out of constant tension, even for a few seconds at a time. This will show up again later, when the pressure is higher and you need that reset most. There's another piece to winning your day before work: who you are when you cross the threshold into the next space. The claim here is this: the moment you step out of the car, off the bus, or off the train is a doorway, and if you don't walk through it intentionally, you drag the entire commute with you. If you always rush straight from vehicle to desk, from platform to meeting, without even one conscious step, the stress of the commute spills directly into your first interactions. If you never create a transition ritual, you'll keep snapping at people who had nothing to do with the way someone cut you off 15 minutes ago. This works because your brain uses physical cues as anchors for mental states. That first step into the office lobby, that swipe of your badge, that moment when your shoes hit the sidewalk outside your stop, these are natural anchors. If you attach a small, consistent action and a simple phrase to that anchor, you teach your mind to associate it with a reset. You're not erasing the commute, you're marking that it's over and another phase has begun. A disciplined version of you uses the threshold moment like an athlete stepping onto the field: simple, grounded, ready. Here's your script: as I step in, I leave the road behind. You can adapt road to train, bus, or ride, depending on your situation, but keep the structure. Say it as your foot hits the ground or as you push through the door. Imagine a morning in a Boston winter. You step off the bus, the cold air hits your face, and you're walking toward the glass doors of the building where you work in IT. The sidewalk is slick, the wind cuts through your coat, and your mind is still replaying that pickup truck that swerved into your lane 10 minutes ago. In the past, you'd stomp straight inside, still tense, hang your coat, and immediately jump into a conversation with a coworker while your brain was elsewhere. Today, as your boots hit the pavement, you slow the pace of your steps just slightly. You take one deep breath of that cold air and think, as I step in, I leave the road behind. You don't deny that the commute was stressful, you just decide not to carry it into every conversation. You push through the lobby doors, nod at the security guard, and let your attention come to the fact that you're here now. For the next few minutes, you're just walking down a hallway, not mentally still on the highway. Your tiny action is to choose one physical marker and one sentence for your threshold ritual. It might be the parking brake click, the elevator doors closing, or the swipe of your entry card. At that exact marker, pause for one breath and say, as I step in, I leave the road behind. Do this for the next week's worth of commutes. It will feel repetitive, but that's how you turn a random arrival into a deliberate reset. Remember this moment, because in that Friday scenario we'll get to, this ritual is the difference between carrying your anger into a critical conversation and leaving it at the door. Up to now, everything we've built has been about you and your mind. But most commutes also tie into the people in your life, family, partners, roommates, coworkers, who feel the ripple effects of how you travel. The claim here is this: if you don't communicate how you're using your commute as a reset, the people close to you may misread your new habits as distance or disinterest. If they think your silence in the carpool or your new rule about not answering heavy texts on the train means you're pulling away, tension can grow unnecessarily. If you never explain your intentions, your attempt at discipline can look like avoidance. This works because relationships are built on expectations. When you change a rhythm, like not picking up right away during your drive, or asking for quiet during the first 10 minutes after you park, people notice. Without context, the mind fills in the blanks with stories, often negative ones. A simple, honest conversation about how you're trying to use your commute differently can turn potential conflict into collaboration. You show up as someone who is not only trying to be more focused, but also trying to protect the relationship from the worst version of your stressed out self. Here's a script you can use with someone close to you. I'm trying to use my commute to show up calmer for you and for work, so if I'm quieter or slower to answer while I'm on the road, that's why. I'm not ignoring you, I'm trying to not bring the worst of traffic into our conversations. That's plain, human, and understandable. Picture a scenario in a North American suburb. You and your partner share a car. Most mornings, you drop them at their job before heading to yours. Historically, you've both used the drive to catch up on everything: bills, kids' schedules, family drama, work complaints. By the time you pull up to their building, you're both wound up. The rest of your commute alone feels like recovery. Recently, you've started practicing your commute rituals, setting inputs, previewing the day, using stops as reset cues. Your partner notices you're not jumping into heavy topics the second you start driving and asks, "Are you okay?" You seem distant. In the past, you might have snapped back, "I'm just tired," and let the tension simmer. Today, you use your script. At a red light, you say, "I'm trying to use my commute to show up calmer for you and for work, so if I'm quieter or slower to answer while I'm on the road, that's why. I'm not ignoring you, I'm trying to not bring the worst of traffic into our conversations." They nod slowly. It might still take a little adjustment, but you've made your intention visible. Your tiny action is to identify one person who's impacted by how you commute, maybe a partner, roommate, or close coworker, and share one sentence about what you're trying to do. It doesn't need to be a big speech. A simple, "Hey, I'm trying something new with my mornings so I'm not as stressed when I get in," is enough. That small act of communication supports your discipline rather than undermines it. Now that you have these individual tools, let's see them under real pressure. It's Friday morning in late fall, still dark when your alarm goes off. You're in a city like Seattle or Montreal, somewhere with real weather, and the forecast today is messy rain, maybe snow, definitely traffic. You're already behind because you slept badly. Maybe you stayed up scrolling, maybe a kid woke you up, and maybe your mind just wouldn't shut off. In the past, a morning like this would almost guarantee a bad commute and an even worse day. You move through your routine anyway. You grab your coffee, throw on a jacket, and step out into the cold, wet air. The street lights shine on the damp pavement. This is your first fork in the road. Old you would mutter something about hating mornings and rush straight to the car with a sense of dread. Today, you quietly say, "From now until I arrive, this is practice, not punishment." The phrase doesn't magically wake you up, but it gives the next hour a frame. You slide into the driver's seat, start the engine, and your phone screen lights up. There's a text from your manager that came in late last night. "Can we talk at 9 about the client numbers?" There's also a notification from your bank reminding you about a payment, and a group chat thread that's already buzzing about weekend plans. Your stomach tightens. You feel the urge to tap the text, read into every word, and start spiraling before you even back out of the driveway. Instead, you remember your boundary. You say out loud, "I'm on the road right now. I'll look at this properly when I arrive." You swipe the notification away without opening it and put your phone screen down in the console. As you pull onto the main road, the rain picks up. Wipers swish back and forth. You turn on the audio you chose last night, a short, 20-minute talk about focusing on what you can control, and let it fill the car. The highway is already a line of red lights. You merge and almost immediately hit the first slowdown. Your chest tightens. You feel the beginning of the familiar, "here we go again" monologue. Then traffic stops. Brake lights glow around you. This is your cue. Every stop is a cue to reset, not to rage, you think. Feet flat on the floor. Grip loosens. One slow inhale, one slightly longer exhale. You're not thrilled about it, but you've given your body a different script. A few miles later, traffic thins, then bunches again. Another stop, another reset. The podcast host mentions the idea of expecting daily friction, and you remember your preview. You glance at the clock, you've still got 40 minutes before 9. In your head, you say, "Today, I expect some friction, and here's how I plan to meet it." You picture the meeting with your manager. You see yourself listening all the way through before answering. You imagine saying, "I hear your concerns. Here's what I can adjust," instead of getting defensive. You picture yourself tonight, talking through money with your partner without dumping the day's anger on them. It feels strange to rehearse calmly in the middle of a storm of brake lights, but you're doing it. Halfway there, a pickup truck swerves into your lane without signaling. You have to brake a little harder than you'd like. In the old script, this would be the moment you lay on the horn, maybe roll down the window, shout a few names that don't help anything, and spend the next 10 minutes replaying it. Today, your first reaction still spikes hot. You mutter something under your breath. Your heart rate jumps. But then the stop-and-go pattern repeats. The next slowdown hits, and you catch yourself. Feet down. Shoulders relaxed. One long exhale. You're not saintly, you're practicing. As your exit approaches, you notice your runway marker, a big green sign a mile before your turn. You pause your audio. The car goes quiet except for the rain and the tires on wet pavement. The last 5 minutes are for landing, not more noise, you remind yourself. You run through your quick checklist. What matters in the next 2 hours? The 9 o'clock meeting, one key client email you need to send, and one conversation with a teammate you've been putting off. What's one thing you can let go of for now? You decide not to obsess over the bank notification until your lunch break. How do you want to show up? You choose steady as your word for the morning. You pull into the parking lot. The wipers squeak once more as you turn off the engine. For a moment, you're tempted to grab your phone and finally read that text from your manager right there in the car. But you know how that goes. You'll end up sitting in the driver's seat for 10 minutes, heart racing, scrolling through old messages, maybe even sending a rushed reply. Instead, you stick to your rule. You're not avoiding the conversation, you're choosing where you'll have it. You pull the parking brake and sit for 10 silent seconds. The world outside is still wet and gray. You can hear distant traffic, a car door slamming somewhere across the lot. This is your threshold. You open the door, step out into the cold, and as your shoes hit the slick asphalt, you say, "As I step in, I leave the road behind." You feel silly, but you say it anyway. You walk toward the building. Each step is a small declaration, commute is over, the next phase is beginning. Inside the lobby, you nod at the front desk staff. You ride the elevator up. When you reach your floor, you walk to your desk, hang up your coat, and finally sit down. Now you pick up your phone and open the text from your manager. "Can we talk at 9 about the client numbers?" Reading it in this calmer space, you notice something you didn't last night. There's no accusation, just a request. You open your calendar, block a few minutes after the meeting to adjust your tasks, and then send a simple reply, "Sure, I'll be ready. See you then." You still feel a small flutter of nerves, but it's not running the show. Later that evening, when you drive home through the same rain and traffic, the commute is still annoying. There are still reckless lane changes, still slowdowns, still a line at the gas station. But you are different inside those moments. You're practicing again, choosing your inputs, using stops as reset cues, protecting your arrival back home. When you finally walk through your front door and your partner asks, "How was the drive?" you don't unload a tirade about terrible drivers. You say, "Messy, but I'm here," and you mean it. You've just lived through the kind of day that used to knock you over, and you stayed a little more grounded. That's the commute becoming your training ground in real time. What you've done in this lesson is take something that used to feel like pure drain, your commute, and turn it into a series of deliberate choices. The real theme underneath all of this is simple: reacting is what happens when you wait for the world to shape your state, responding is what happens when you start shaping it yourself. Mindless mornings leave you scattered and at the mercy of traffic, delays, and other people's urgency. Intentional commutes help you win the day before you even sit down at your desk. First, you saw how reframing the commute from dead time to training time changes everything. When you tell yourself, "This is practice, not punishment," you stop treating every annoyance as an attack and start using it as a rep. Then you shape your inputs, choosing to feed your mind only what you want more of later instead of letting random headlines and arguments dictate your mood. Next, you build an arrival buffer by protecting the last minutes of your commute as a landing, not more noise, so you don't stumble into your day already spinning. After that, you drew a line around your digital life on the road, refusing to process heavy messages while half distracted and instead deciding to read and respond when you can actually think. You added a Stoic-style preview of the day, expecting friction and choosing in advance how you'll meet it, so challenges feel less like ambushes and more like tests you prepared for. You layered in a physical reset, using stops and slowdowns as cues to breathe and release tension instead of doubling down on anger. You created a threshold ritual for stepping into the building or the next space, leaving the road behind instead of carrying it into every conversation. Finally, you saw all of these moves come together in that rainy Friday morning commute, where the old version of the day might have exploded, and the new version held steady. Today, your first do today step is to choose one line that anchors you and actually say it on your next commute, out loud or in your head. Maybe "From now until I arrive, this is practice, not punishment," or "Every stop is a cue to reset, not to rage." The second step is to set up one intentional input before you move, a podcast, playlist, or audiobook that you genuinely want in your head when you arrive, and commit to playing that instead of letting random content take over. The third step is to protect a short landing strip by picking a marker near your destination and turning off all audio, all messages, and all scrolling for those last minutes so you can breathe, ask yourself what matters next, and walk in on purpose. If this resonated, the natural next step is to go deeper into what happens once you're inside, how to carry this same discipline from the commute into your first hour of work, where most people lose their focus to email, open tabs, and other people's agendas. You'll want to look for the lesson on building a Stoic first hour at your desk, where we break down exactly how to protect your best attention from being hijacked the moment you log in. If you feel messages like this need to reach more people, hit like, tap subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. The road and the train aren't going away, but how you travel can change starting with your very next trip.